dropped my first project, and it was called N.I.N.E. And what that number represents to me is a very multi-layered, meaning to me personally, spiritually, what that number means, how that number aligns with my life, just in synchronicity and just, different weird things that I started to recognize that the 9 meant to me.
Welcome to Vulnerability Muscle, the empowering podcast challenging norms and guiding you to find strength and power through vulnerability. I'm your host, Reggie D. Ford. In a world that often portrays vulnerability as a sign of weakness, I believe it is a source of tremendous strength and authenticity. Through insightful conversations and thought-provoking interviews, Vulnerability Muscle aims to redefine vulnerability and help listeners develop a new perspective on their own lives. Each episode of Vulnerability Muscle delves into a variety of topics such as mental health, social issues, and mindset shifts. We explore the power of vulnerability in healing, building resilience, and promoting personal growth, as well as fostering meaningful connections. This podcast provides practical tools and strategies to navigate life's challenges, overcome adversity, and create more inclusive and just environments for all people. Quez Cantrell is our guest. Quez is a Nashville native from out east. He's a Nashville artist, one of the hottest new hip hop artists in the city. He's a web designer, public speaker, and youth advocate. Quez, we talk about so many things with in this episode, from grief of losing a father, a brother. Talk about his music, which is phenomenal. He has some new music coming out that's dropping summer of 2023, and just overall transitions in life in this mentality of going from very shy to being this person who is very vulnerable in his expression to the world and in his music. So, with no further ado, let's embrace vulnerability with Quez Cantrell. Quez Cantrell. Quez, what's up, man?
What's up, Reggie? How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well, bro. It's so good to have you on the podcast. Embracing vulnerability, that's something that I think we do every single time we sit down and talk.
Nah, for real. Every time.
Every time, like
Yeah.
I just think back to some of the recent conversations we've had where it'll either you or me or somebody will just start crying. It's like that's just the power of the conversations we have. So I'm
Yeah.
glad to have you on the podcast to actually tap in and let the world hear some of our conversations.
Man, I'm happy to be here. You know what I'm saying? I've been waiting on this moment to see you take this jump, you know what I'm saying? Push your line and get further into what it is that you do so well already. You know what I mean? I'm proud of you, and I'm happy to be a part of this for real.
Man, I appreciate that. I'm proud of you too. That means a lot coming from you. Let's just kick it off. Start by telling us, who is Quez Cantrell? Like, as far back as you want to go, but who are you?
Who am I? Man, I mean, I guess I'll just go back to the beginning. Born and raised in Nashville, out east in the inner city. Pretty much every neighborhood in Nashville I've lived in. So that's why I never really adhere to one particular place. My story kind of touches so many places in Nashville, even not even just on the side that we come from, but Antioch, Donaldson, West Nashville, South Nashville, North Nashville. Like, I've lived on every side. But man, a son of two hardworking people. My mom and my dad, two teen parents, who struggled to really keep us out of the inner city, everything that came with it, everything that came with raising young men, young black men, in impoverished areas, and two teen parents who neither had, further than a 10th grade education, and still um, found some way to really pour into us to tell us what was right, what was wrong, and just led us in a direction that they hoped that we follow, but they knew that they ultimately didn't really have control over our decisions. They just kind of told us what came with the decisions that we made and were making at the time. But even deeper than that, man, just an advocate for Nashville in its entirety, especially I would say the music culture in Nashville. I've been advocating for the music scene here since I was honestly like 7 or 8 years old. When I first started, when I first got involved, or not even involved, just became aware that it existed around me, and like, oh, these people are from where I'm from. I get to see these people. So I looked at Nashville artists from the beginning as stars, just like I looked at the Tupacs and the Biggies. I looked at everybody else from around here. They were amazing to me. So I always advocated for Nashville hip hop and the Nashville music scene. And even just going deeper, education, tapped in, very educated college graduate, computer science. So I've touched into the IT sector here. Even the corporate world, working in corporate America, working for Deloitte, how me and you, and I, like I said, we'll probably get into some more things, but my story really just touches so many different sections. And it's kind of overwhelming, kind of hard to put it, like when
Yeah.
somebody asks me who I am, it's like, man, it's like, how much time do you have? You know what I'm saying? Because we can, how much time do you have? Because I can really go, and it gets deep, and I'm still becoming aware of a bunch of those parts, and aware of how they all fit together and make the story as a whole. It's kind of what I'm focused on right now, just telling my story in general.
Absolutely. I mean, you touched on some things that I feel like I probably could have said in response to that exact same question with being a Nashville native from out east,
Mhm.
living in so many different parts of the city and impoverished areas and coming up like we have, teen parents. We have so many similarities in
Yeah,
our stories.
yeah.
And I think like one thing that I've recognized about you is your advocacy for Nashville. Like you repping the N.I.N.E hat right now. Can you tell us a little bit about that hat? The inspiration behind the N.I.N E, the colors, the brand, all of that.
Yeah, so initially, once I um decided that I was going to be an artist, which literally was what, 3 years ago. I dropped my first project, and it was called Nine. And what that number represents to me is it's a very multi-layered, meaning to me personally, spiritually, what that number means, how the number aligns with my life, just in synchronicity, and just, different weird things that I started to recognize that the nine meant to me. But on the surface level, I think when you say nine in Nashville, and it's this exact nine in these colors, you go back to 1999, 1998, the Titans coming to town, and Steve McNair being the quarterback here, in the town where it's like it's country music. It's a town that advocates for, I guess, whiteness. I would say, it doesn't really we have a culture here, but it's not one that's vastly represented in so many ways. So when I say the nine, you really take your mind takes you back to a time period of when Steve McNair first came here, and as a kid, you get to see a black quarterback. You get to see, he goes out and he puts his body on the line every day for the team. He's a leader. He's actually in the community. I think that was one of the things that people didn't really recognize, is like he was tangible. It wasn't just somebody that you see on TV, but you could go to his camps. He had a restaurant. He would have softball games. So when I think of Steve McNair and I think of the nine, I really think of community, and I think of leadership, and I think of black leadership. So when I dropped my first EP, it was called Nine, just simply Nine. And that EP talked a lot about collective blackness and collective black identity. So when I say the nine, I really feel like I'm talking about the community in Nashville, when it comes to blackness and our unique experience growing up in this in this city that is just overwhelmingly white. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Overwhelmingly white, and trying to etch out our own identity within that, and creating our own history. And that project, it touches back, it goes back to 50 or 60 years, before there was a Steve McNair, and before there was a nine. But that story of blackness goes as far back as we can remember, and so many other things that Nashville is known for came from the brains of black people. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
The
Definitely.
the chicken, the hot chicken, the even with it being titled Music City, and country music capitalizing on that term, but a lot of people not really knowing that comes from black voices
Fifth
and black
Jubilee.
Fitz Jubilee singers. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it comes from literal. When we sing, that comes from a place of pain, a place of struggle. So yeah, just the nine, like I said, is multi-layered, but I think when I look at what it means collectively for all of us, it's just a collective Black identity, and it's, symbols rule the world, symbols run the world. So that's kind of what I promote when I say the 9. And then personally to me, my life path number is number 9, which actually led me to just understanding the synchronicity of 9, the meaning of it,
Tell me,
spiritually.
tell me what life path means. The life
So
path number.
a life path number, is basically, it goes into numerology. It goes into just the same way you have zodiac signs. What kind of tell you, like, all right, you were born at this time and this time, and this is what it means. And I was never really a firm believer in anything like that. But I got a life path reading done, and they told me I was a 9, and that number represents completeness. It represents leadership, philanthropy, community involvement, like politics, all of these different things that I started to look at what I was doing already. And I was like, wow, that, it really spoke to me, you know what I mean? And then I just started looking at different things, like my birthday is 10/26, that's 1, 2, 6, 9. I was born in 1989. That's 999. So my birthday, if you, do the math, if you're into that type of stuff, it really literally breaks down to 9999. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just
Yeah.
different stuff like that kind of like just was overwhelming to me. And it really just led me to that point of, I'm already involved in Nashville, in so many different ways. I already had a skill set when it came to writing and music that I didn't, nobody even knew. I was working with artists. I was doing different things in the community, building websites, building playlists, really playing like an A&R role. And, I just took all of those things, and over a time period was sitting with that information, kind of just came up with this idea of like, man, that brand, I feel like, represents everybody here in Nashville, in
Hmm.
some way, shape, or form. And I just ran with it, man. And the once I started giving it energy, it started giving me energy back, and it's opened up, so many doors and opportunities. Got me here sitting talking to you, you know what I mean? And just the
Definitely.
places that it's taken me so far, man. It's just, it's a beautiful thing to see. You know what I'm saying? It's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing to be, honestly.
Absolutely. When
Yeah.
you bring up the word sorry,
Synchronicity. Yeah.
synchronicity, there it is. When you bring up that word,
Mhm.
I heard something recently where if you start to see synchronicities in your life,
Mm.
that means you're attracting all the good things that you are putting out into the world. So I
Mm.
see that in the way that you've moved, in the way that you've promoted yourself and become the artist, the person, the dad, the
Mm.
the the human that you are.
Yes, sir.
Uh how and you mentioned something that I just gotta touch on is the overwhelming feeling of the whiteness in Nashville.
For sure.
And I think it's hard for, white people who live here to recognize that from our perspective
Mhm.
because it's just normal for them. But I remember getting off the plane. I think I had just come back from the Bahamas or Jamaica one. And when you're there, it's like it's all black people. It's all black. And it's a level of, like, for me, my chest like just relaxed,
Mm.
my blood pressure went
Mhm.
down just
Mhm.
because of that alone.
Yeah.
And then landing back in Nashville and getting to the airport, it was just like, oh, I felt myself tighten up a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
And that stark contrast was something that I never realized because I was always here,
Mhm.
always around it.
Mhm.
But imagine like 30 plus years of a life being in that. It's like, what
Yeah.
does that do to your body? So it just that phrasing, overwhelming, like that's something that I've recognized as well.
Man,
Uh
even in, well, I don't want, but even in
no, go
that,
ahead.
with the song "Creeping at My Window," that
Yeah.
I wrote a song called "Creeping at My Window," and it's really talking about how overbearing whiteness is when you actually understand that, like, we're this much of the percentage of this city, and then you go out and it's like we only have this many spaces to
Yeah.
be ourselves and represent us, and then everything else is them, and the same, like going to Houston a couple weeks ago was really just like it just felt weird to be in places with so many black people. Atlanta was like that for me the first couple times I went down. It was just like, wow, like it really opened my eyes. So that song and that video, I'm even talking about the mental game that it plays with you, knowing that, like, you're just a microcosm of um what's actually what this city consists of, and trying to etch out our own space and have a louder voice and a louder appearance, or just being more aware that that exists, and what that feels like mentally and expressing that, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I think your music is so powerful because it's not the music that you're hearing on the radio that is and we can talk about that, but there's drugs, there's gangs, there's all this stuff that's in that music. Your music isn't that. Your
Mm,
music, I would say, is conscious. Your music is and conscious in a cool way, because I think
mm,
conscious sometimes
mm-hmm.
gets misconstrued and it's
Yeah,
like lame, but it's like cool. It's good to listen to the beats, the melodies. Your voice on a track is phenomenal. Where
thank you.
did that expression of yourself, that the vulnerable expression of yourself, when did you start to develop that?
Honestly, it wasn't until, let's see, I dropped my first project in 2020. Um, so it would probably be around 2019. A lot. I started writing honestly with the thought that I'm going to be an artist, and I'm going to try to be an artist even at 28. You know what I
At
mean?
28
So
years
at
old?
28, but I actually started writing and developing the skill of writing at 13.
Hmm.
And Stanley Springer, he went to school with us, Young Blue.
Blue.
Yeah, he's still producing and engineering in LA for I want to say Atlantic Records. Don't quote me on that, but like that was the first time that I ever wrote. And even when I think of back then, like I was talking about vulnerable stuff. Like I was talking about my
Mhm.
dad being in prison and, me wanting to like hurt the judge that sentenced him. And, at 13 years old, like I'm pouring this type of stuff out. And it's like I knew then that like I just was different already somehow. I didn't necessarily understand that that was vulnerability, but I knew
Mm.
that I just wanted to write my story and my experience. Like it just kind of came naturally. But tying that into the awareness of Nashville and my experience and the experience of others, they came over years of just having these conversations about what it's like to grow up black in Nashville. And I always say
Yeah.
that Nashville is a microcosm of America. It when it comes to, I'm pretty sure the percentages are somewhere close, or and so I feel like the experience of growing up black in America is the same as the experience of growing up black in Nashville.
Hmm.
And yeah, around 28, is when I sat down and I really just started focusing on um writing to for people to hear it, writing for people to hear it and writing the experience and being truthful and honest with it. But I don't think I really connected it to the vulnerability side until I dropped N.I.N.E. And once I dropped N.I.N.E and I got the
Yeah.
response that people were like the Black Today was like one of the toughest songs to write. I started writing that song literally the day that Nipsey passed. I gotta keep me reminded, you know what I'm saying, right here by my desk. So the day that he
Yeah.
passed, that's the day. Like I wrote the first verse of that song and the hook, and I'd had that beat for maybe a year prior to that. You know what I mean? And I just was like
Hmm.
something important. This is something
Yep.
important. I didn't know what it was, so I just didn't write to
Yep.
it. Um, and then the second verse, I didn't write that until my brother passed away. When Marcus passed away, my younger brother passed away 2019, like literally 2 months after Nip passed. I want to say 2 or 3 months after Nip passed, something like that. It was kind of like that really. So yeah, like I wrote the first verse to the Black Today, literally like exactly when Nipsey passed. You know what I mean? Because it's like when that happened to him, that it really, like, I cried. You know what I'm saying? Because I was so connected with his story, with his movement. I'm a marathon member. I adhere to that. You know what I mean? So I felt that. You know what I'm saying? And in the moment, I didn't understand why I was crying, why I was so involved and engaged with somebody that I've never met, but I've traveled across the country to go to his store and to experience what he's built over there. You know what I mean? So
Right.
I wrote the first verse and the hook there, and then I wrote the second verse after Marcus passed away. But I performed, like I spoke at my brother's funeral. My younger brother Marcus, who was killed, 20 July 8th, 2019. Um, I done the first verse of that song at his funeral, and nobody had, just acapella, like as more as a poem, spoken word. And I think that kind of opened people's eyes to like what just happened? Like Quez don't even talk. Quez ain't even, you know what I'm saying? Like he's not that type of person. You know what I mean? So I think that was just a step out of my comfort zone. So I would say, man, what really drove me there is just pain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Pain and feeling that pain, and that was my way of showing people the pain that I was in. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and
absolutely.
tell you like, man, I'm hurting them. Nah, I'm gonna give you my words. You know, and I've had even at my dad's funeral when I spoke, who passed in 2013. I had one of my cousins pull me aside afterwards, and he was like, "You got something with words." He said, "I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, cuz, but you got to do something with your words because the way you put your words together, the way you just write, you know, I didn't even. It wasn't a rap or nothing. It was just something that I wrote for my dad. You know what I'm saying? And the
Mm-hmm.
way that I delivered it, he was like, "It's something about your voice. It's something
Yeah.
about the way it feels when I hear you saying stuff." And putting that together with the way that you're able to put words together, it kind of just it still, like I said, it still took me 5 years after my dad passed to really realize, or I just kind of I knew it that I was supposed to write, that I was supposed to do a little more with my words, but being reluctant, you know what I'm saying, and
Mm-hmm.
feeling like, man, nah, that ain't, you know what I'm saying, that ain't it.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
really felt that God gave me a vision a long time ago that I'm supposed to do something with words, and I just,
That's
building up,
powerful.
yeah, building up the bravery to stand in front of that,
Yep.
and I think that's what took the longest, just building up the bravery and the confidence. Like I said, I grew up as a quiet kid, reserved. You probably never heard me talk until we until we were grown. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you probably was like, man, I don't even know what Quiz sound like for real. You know what I mean? So like, and to just be that, to go from that and knowing that I could always be this, but getting over that block that I had of like just reassurance and
Right.
self
Yeah.
image and who I'm supposed to be versus who I am and who God has called me to be. So
Yes.
that was kind of the journey between then and now.
As a person who has witnessed that transition and that growth and who continues to witness it, I appreciate it and thank you for finding that voice, for finding that courage, because your words through your music, your words just through telling your story alone are super inspiring.
Thank you.
They really are, and so I appreciate that. And I think going back to just so many parallels within our stories. Like I write some music, I don't share some
For
with
sure.
you. Uh
Nice.
but but
Nice. Yeah.
a lot of my music, like I feel like I've been vulnerable my entire life through that art form.
Mm,
Not necessarily like I grew up shy and anxious and didn't trust too many people to
mhm.
talk to them.
Mhm.
And so I would keep everything close to the chest. But if something were to happen or if I really wanted to get something out, I got pen and pad out, and that's how I got it out. And I look back over my life and over, the music that I have made.
Mm.
It is early on, especially, it's a highlight film or low light film almost of all the bad things that
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember Ruben who got killed at Shelby
I
Park. So like
remember. I was
that
down there,
was
so I
yeah,
definitely remember.
that was one of my, you know, big moments. And then having my cousin get killed, and then like all of these big tragedies, like you
Mhm.
said, it came from pain.
Mhm.
And in my book, I talk about the process of perseverance, starting with pain.
Mm.
Like you gotta have some type of pain, annoyance, or something to persevere, or
Mhm.
else you're just pushing. And so from pain to passion, passion to purpose, purpose to power, power to peace,
Mm.
you are doing that. You're in that transition. You just spoke to that. Like
Yeah.
your music came from pain
Yeah.
and where you are. And I hope that you go through that process and find the peace. I hope you're finding the peace.
Mm.
Of course, it's an up and down thing,
For
but
sure.
you touched on some things that I want to speak about with loss,
Mm.
right? And you said you lost your father and you lost your brother.
Mhm.
What age were you when those losses happened, and how did that impact you?
I lost my dad when I was 23. Going into my last semester of college, and that experience, it was kind of like losing him for the third time. I lost him in '99 to incarceration. And he came back with like my freshman year of high school. He was out pretty much through my entirety of high school, but it was still, I was a different kid when he came back. I there was a lot of resentment that showed up in him being gone, and as a kid, he used to always try to get me to express that because he knew it existed, but he wouldn't like press us to say it or to, and as a kid, I'm just happy you back, like, you know what I'm saying? So I don't care about all that. And then he went to prison again when I was a freshman in college, and that was the experience of like, man, like, again, you know what I mean? Like, this, I really need you during this time period, you know what I mean? And then he got out, and then a year after he got out, he passed away going into my last semester of college. So I think at that time I didn't really recognize how that affected me because I didn't know how to. I didn't know. I'd experienced loss, but never that one, and I didn't know how deep losing a father would be. I didn't, or is in general. Just losing a piece of you that you are a part of, you know what I mean? And how much a year and a half after he passed, I became a father.
Mm-hmm.
And, not being able to share that with him, even today, man, it's still something that's just so hurtful. Like, my daughter asks me questions about him, and I really can't give her like what type of man he was, even through all of his transgressions and him going to prison, all he's still the best man that I've ever known in my whole life, and the things that, and me understanding his story a little more put me in position to be able to forgive him. Like, I just didn't get it. I didn't get, like, man, why you keep going to prison? Like, why you keep leaving us? And that last time it was so much anger that built up from that situation because I knew how much I needed him at that point in my life. You know what I mean? But it didn't have that type of effect on me. I just got super focused. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I blocked everything out and I focused on graduating because I knew that was like the moment that we were waiting for. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So I like put my head down and rushed to that. And I didn't deal with the pain in the ways that I know how to deal with them now, sitting down and talking about it and processing it and expressing it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that just lingered in me for years, and I became a father, and that helped bring a lot of those things to the surface, but I still didn't have the tools on how to deal with that, you
Right.
know. And then losing my brother 6 years after the fact, July 8th, 2019, that was, I think that's, we that's the straw that broke the camel's back. That's what completely broke me and sent me down a road that in hindsight I didn't know that I was going down. Um, I got really um into smoking marijuana,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying, in backwoods. That was kind of my thing of like just escaping and numbing that feeling, and it really turned me into a completely different person for a long time. Like, I at first I was angry because he was murdered. Like, my dad just passed from health, but my brother was murdered, and where we come from, that's handled in a certain way. You know what I mean? So like in my mind, it wasn't just anger; it was revenge.
Yep.
It was the fact that like something got to happen. Like, something happened to my little brother. That was my assignment. That's how I always felt, and now I got to go make that right. And that's me going from being on this side of the spectrum all the way to this side of the spectrum and saying like literally everything that I worked for, I was just ready to throw it away, bro. Like, uh, so I look
Yeah.
at today in a sense of like, I'm grateful that I'm still here. I'm grateful that I'm still a part of my daughter's life because I know where that almost took me doing something to somebody else or to myself, because that was something that I
Yeah.
contemplated so much. Just like, man, I'm tired. I'm tired of dealing with this pain that I didn't ask for, these circumstances that like I've worked hard to put myself in a certain position, and I still all of the things that I tried to get away from in life, coming from the impoverished background, and like literally a real street dynamic, being around it so much, I still had to deal with the consequences of what that brings to our lives. Even though I made the
Yeah.
right decisions, I still dealt with the consequences of the wrong decisions in some type of way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they both
Can
had
you put a
different.
name?
Mhm.
Can you put a name to the feelings that you felt about yourself and all the negative feelings that you had? Is there a name to what you were
A
dealing with?
few. Guilt is the first one that comes to mind because I just felt like, in me making the right decision for myself, going to school, I I wasn't there for my younger brother to kind of lead him in the direction that I felt like he could have gone. So like being a big brother that leaves and comes back and your brother's a completely different person, tattoos on his face, is like I felt guilty for that. I felt guilty for doing what was right for me, because it seemed like it was wrong for him. you know Shame, and
Mm.
just something like that so publicly happened to my brother. And we our names are so close, we're like twins. Like, even though we were so completely different, we still grew up like this, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I felt guilt, shame, embarrassment that our name was in something like that. you know um Man, I think those would be the main
Yeah.
phrases that I would say. But guilt would probably be the one that ate at me the most, that still kind of eats at me. Like, Ti's got a song like called Still Ain't Forgave Myself, one of my favorite
Hmm.
songs by Ti that he's ever written. And I still listen to that song, and I'm still practicing on forgiving myself for whatever I felt like I was supposed to be, and unlearning that thought process that, like, my brother wasn't my child, he wasn't actually my responsibility. So unlearning those things. But those concepts are so ingrained in our psyche, in our childhood, in our upbringing, you know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
I still struggle with guilt. I still struggle with it every day, looking at his kids, looking at the
Yep.
pain that my mom feels. Like, it's hard to have joy around people that remind you of the pain that exists
Hmm.
between y'all, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Hmm.
even us as a family, we're still struggling to kind of put the pieces back together, collectively, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And just so many un unanswered questions, so many missed opportunities to actually be a family. And just, it just feels like we lost an arm, and we're
Definitely.
and we're trying to figure out how to get ourselves back healthy with one arm and two legs, you know what I mean?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a quick question. Do you feel any guilt around your father's passing?
Oh yeah, I do. It's not necessarily with the passing, but just the like I was in school when it happened. So I was a computer science major. Anybody knows about that, man, the workload is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And like when I went to college, I that was the first time I'd ever had a laptop. So the learning curve that I had trying to catch up with everybody else. And then my dad goes to prison. So, and then my older brother went to prison the same semester that my dad went to prison. So I lost two of them.
Hmm. Mm.
And my brother's back at home by himself, and I'm getting calls about his actions, his behavior, and all of those things. But like that workload of being a computer science major, it's like I was just tuned in, you know what I
Right.
mean? I was
Right.
tuned in, and I kind of focused everything else out. And I remember
Right.
my dad even called me the night before he passed.
Wow.
It was kind of late. It was like maybe 7 o'clock when he called me, and I'm studying because I had like the make or break test the next day. You know what I mean? Like, all right, if I don't pass this test, I might drop out of. I had to drop out of school, change my major, or something like
Right.
that. You know what I mean? And like I look up and it's like 11 o'clock, and I'm like, man, I'll call him tomorrow. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
He probably sleep, or I don't really want to bother him. And like that's the one phone call that like I feel so guilty for missing. You know what I
Definitely.
mean? Like I
Yeah.
feel guilty for missing it because it was the next day, like literally phone on silent, took that test, walking to the next class. And I
Yeah.
get in the class and I look at the phone, it's just missed calls and texts
Yeah.
and voice messages, and
Yeah.
a little even deeper, man. I know people don't like really, I don't know what people believe, but I actually like the moment that my uncle told me that my dad passed away, I saw that in a dream maybe a year or two before. You know what I
Wow.
mean? Like
Wow.
that exact moment. So I didn't even react first to
Yeah.
that feeling. It was kind of like a shock, like,
I
wait,
felt this before.
like this is I see like the exact I'm looking, the exact view of when and then it kind of hit me. I'm like, what? And he broke down. And after
Yeah.
that, man, it was just a blur. It was just a blur for like the next few years, honestly.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Grief is heavy. Grief is heavy like that.
Mhm,
And it's a roller coaster of a ride. And I think sometimes grief is people want grief to pass.
mhm,
Even like the outside people looking in and saying, like, it's been X amount of time, it's been so
mhm.
many years, aren't you over that by now? And it's
Yeah,
like, no. Like
yeah.
you say, that your father's past and your brother's past, these are a part of you. you
Mhm,
you are a part of them.
mhm.
And that just doesn't go away. And it could be 20, 30 years from now, you're still
Yeah.
gonna feel certain things. It's
Mhm,
gonna, like, what's my dude? Murray has a song. He
Mm,
said, "Time heals all." That's a lie because
mm,
I still see the pain every time I close my eyes.
mm,
And I
mm,
and I and I love that line because it's the reality of it. Like time can make some things worse. Right?
mm,
I've seen in situations where time has actually made things worse, and so to believe that time is going to heal it all, uh, not necessarily true. So I appreciate you for speaking on that and to the level that you did.
mm,
And one thing I want to offer you, because like you said, your name, as your family's name, and you and people knowing that being attached to you, I forgive you.
mm.
If you haven't forgiven yourself, I forgive you because I don't think that you had anything to do with either of those passings. And I
Yeah.
don't think that there's anything in your life that you could have done differently
Mm,
to affect that situation.
yeah.
Not that you need my permission or anything like that, but I free you from that because
Mm,
I see all the, and this is I find silver linings, even though that's not always what we need to do. But I see a silver lining in it, and you being this person that you are,
yeah.
like the vulnerable and the authentic expression of Quez, like
Mm,
the 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 Quez that was head down getting through the books, the Quez that was at Deloitte, doing all the work,
yeah.
was a form of Quez, but it wasn't all of Quez.
Yeah.
And I love what it has created in your life and being able to see that. So I want you to feel that
Thank
because
you.
uh yeah, I definitely want you to feel that.
And I receive that. I receive that. Hearing that, man, I sit with these situations a lot, and therapy. Like, I went to therapy. It was one of those things where she made me realize that, like, I really don't have issues in my life personally. There isn't a lot of issues in my life. She was like, I mean, when I think about you and what you're doing and what you've done, she was like, think about that. Like, what have you done that's wrong? What have you done that's wrong? And I just sat about it and I just sat with it. And I'm like, I couldn't answer it. She was like, a lot of the things that you look at and internalize as wrong were you not being able to fix somebody else's wrongs.
Yes,
You know what I
yes.
mean? So, like, I've been, like, over time freeing myself from that too. And you still get that thought in the back of your head. It's like, man, we're athletes, bro. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So, like, I kind of look at it as like, did I leave it all on the field? What's that one play? Man, if I would have made that tackle, that might have been the one that saved the game. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But it's
Mhm.
like, also, man, you like, I done as much as I could for him. When I,
Yep.
like, in terms of my brother, like, I done this, like, I gave everything I had, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
now I'm able to give that in a different way to his kids. I'm able to give that to my mom, and be there for her in the ways that I'm able to, but that's still a dynamic that's even tough to show up for, because
Definitely.
she's lost a son, and that's her focus in so many ways, because that's the pain that she deals with. So our relationship even is still not all the way like this, because we're still dealing with the same pain. We both went through trying to save him from himself, and you know, yeah, it's still a lot. It's still a lot there. Still a lot of um, pain. Yeah. So me and her, man, we still have a relationship as mother and son, but we kind of grew up. Our dynamic was different. My mom, like I said, she was a teen mom, so she was more like an older sister. And seeing her go through the struggle of figuring her life out, we deal with a lot of the same pain, and that has kind of affected our mother son relationship in so many ways. But yeah, dealing with my brother, man, we both just deal with the same pain in different ways. I could never imagine, like, I have a daughter. I could never imagine what it's like to lose a child. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I just try to be there for her in the ways that I can, that I'm strong enough to be. Because there's so many ways that I'm still not strong enough to show up for her, and being honest with myself, in my own healing, and knowing what triggers me. It's kind of been important for me to learn through therapy, through research, through reading books like yours. Which really, man, thank you for that book. Like, I really, I hope you understand what that book has done for me. And I'm speaking for other people, but it is really, like, it was so much. First, like you said, we had so many aligning factors in our lives, and I didn't really realize all of those until I read the book. And then just what you talk about, man, like, It's I take what I learned in that book and I take it into therapy. And she's like, "Oh, you're pretty aware,"
Wow.
you know what I mean? And she's like, "Well, yeah,
Wow.
certain I've done my research, you know what I mean?"
What's up, Vulnerability Muscle fam? We've got an amazing sponsor to talk about today, and it's a product that has truly made a difference in my life. Call Me Go. Now, I only bring products that I believe in, and this is one that has been a game changer for me. Whenever I feel stressed, whenever I feel like things are just piling up and the anxiety is really cranking up, I turn to my Calm Me Go device. This is it right here. This thing is literally a game changer, and I was skeptical about it at first, but what makes this thing stand out? It combines three scientifically proven methods to reducing anxiety. First, there is a grounding technique, multisensory stimulation that really helps you stay present. So you have the feel of it, there's a vibration factor, there's lights, there's also smell. Then there's that scented element, tapping into the power of aromatherapy. But here's the kicker, and what really sets Calm Me Go apart is personalized breathing regulation. It's like having your own breathing coach in your pocket, in your hand. And so I use this when I'm gearing up for podcasts, when I'm starting my day, when I'm calming down and chilling out at the end of my day. It has been an absolute game changer. I love Calm Me Go because it's not a one size fit all solution. It's tailored to me, my body, my unique stress triggers. The impact it has on my daily life is undeniable. Now, I want you to experience the calm that Calm Me Go can bring to your life. Head over to callmego.com and use the code REGGIE444 at checkout for a fantastic $30 off. Trust me, this is an investment in your well being that you won't regret. Visit callmego.com, use the code REGGIE444 at checkout, and let Callmego help you find calm in the storm. I appreciate that. Thank you for the plug for the book Perseverance Through Severe Dysfunction. Go check that out.
Go get that.
Uh, but you bring up something that I think because of where we are now in our healing journey, it's easy to talk about, but
Mhm.
talk about the thought process of going to therapy in the first place from where we come from,
Yeah.
because two black dudes who grew up like we do, like not a lot of people are having that conversation where it's just like, yeah, I went to therapy, and keep on talking
Mhm.
about the conversation as if
Yeah.
it's just normal. So what was that like, getting over the stigma and jumping over that hurdle and actually going to therapy?
Man, I don't think that I actually got over the hurdle. I think I ran full fledged into the hurdle and I laid there in pain. I was like, man, I really need to do something about this. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is not okay. Who I am right now is not okay. You know what I mean? And it was just, it was COVID, COVID sitting down and really having to, like, because when I tell people, like, my COVID year started a year before COVID when my brother passed. Like, I completely
Hmm.
disengaged from society. I completely disengaged from the people who tried to be there for me. You know what I mean? Like, I just, because I was in so much pain, I didn't even know how to verbalize it. You know what I mean? I didn't even know how to say it other than just feeling it and crying at times. And then, like I said, I'd taken up. Now, I've been smoking already, but to that point, it became habitual in the sense of where it was unhealthy, and I was feeling it. But
Hmm.
that feeling kind of took over it was more of like, I'm gonna feel this pain more than the pain that I can't control. You know what I mean? So
Wow.
yeah, so like I really, like, I started just numbing myself as much as possible. And COVID, man, that COVID year was tough. It was tough on myself, my health, my mind. It was tough on my relationship because she had to literally, like, it's like she's watching. Like, she told me one day, I feel like you ran out of the house that day and you never came back,
Yeah.
and that hurt because I was like, I I understood it, but I also knew what I had just gone through. So, like,
Right.
I felt like I was supposed to be changing. I was, I didn't see any other way to deal with this or to cope with it.
Right.
So it was really me not being able to show up emotionally as a father, and not even just emotionally in the literal sense of being a father on the day to day and what that takes, not being able to show up as a partner, not being able to show up as a sibling, as a son, at work. Like, it affected everything. I
Hmm.
became I went from being one of the best workers to one of the worst,
Hmm.
and not really being able to verbalize to them what I felt and what I was going through, because also embarrassed because, like, man, I just lost my brother to murder. And that's not something that, you go in corporate, you already feel out of place. You
Yeah.
already feel too overexposed just because of the color. You know what I mean? So I took all of those things and COVID itself and sitting down, and it was just, I just got to a boiling point where I just broke a few times, bro. Like, I read in your book where you were saying like you remember but you don't remember, like just
Yeah.
talking, spewing stuff, you know what I mean, and balling on the floor. And I had so many situations like that happen in 2020, and I kind of just wanted to understand like what this was. I wanted to understand like, wow, like what's going on with me? I don't know. I've never felt this way, and I've gone through
Mhm.
trauma my whole life. You know
Yep.
what I mean? But this trauma was different. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I felt it. There were times where I would call my mom and I would be breaking and I would be saying stuff to her, and she would call me the next day and just like, son, I don't like I don't like the way that you're speaking.
Yeah.
I don't like, and I don't even remember what I'm saying to her, but I'm just pouring out.
Right.
So I tried the online therapy like right towards the beginning of COVID when it first started happening. I probably was in there maybe 2 months. And I didn't really connect with my therapist too much, if I'm being honest.
Mhm.
She was I needed something that felt she was very mellow in a sense of like it almost seemed as if like she didn't care, and I won't
Mm.
say that, you know what I mean? But that just wasn't the connection there. So I was like, man, I ain't doing, like
Right.
I'm done with that. I ain't finna waste the money, and so I took something from that, but I didn't go back to therapy again for like another year,
Yep.
and it took another situation of like that break, the mental break of just like, man, like I'm tired, da 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 do 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 do, just saying whatever about whatever, and I was like, man, I'm still in that position, and I was in that position last year,
Mhm.
and somebody recommended a therapist to me, and it was probably like that experience was probably the best experience I've ever had, and I had already taken the step in, so I needed to rebuild that in myself to like, all right, it's
Yep.
it's, it's like jumping in a pool and you think you can swim, and then you like, oh snap, I really can't swim. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you fear that again, like jump in the pool and you don't touch the bottom and you panic and you're like, oh
Yeah.
snap, I'm finna drown. So it's
Yeah.
like getting over that and getting back in and finding a therapist that was like perfect. Like it felt like I was talking to my aunt that wasn't my aunt. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And we built a relationship that was like so necessary, and she really made me start one valuing myself in a way that I had never had before. She made me accept that like she told me like your story is not a usual story. She was
Right.
like, I have clients who may have one thing that they talk about. She said, we still haven't touched on everything. And we've been
Yeah.
talking for 4 months. And there are
Right.
still things that we still haven't touched on. She was like, your
Mhm.
story is like dynamic in so many ways. And she made me
Complex.
complex trauma. You know what I
Complex
mean?
trauma. It's
and
real.
and she made me realize that I was dealing with that, but she also made me realize who I am in going through that, and the
Yeah.
fact that like, man, you're still here. You haven't taken your life. You haven't taken another person's life. You've never been to prison. You've never been to jail. You've never been in handcuffs. That's rare for a black man in general. And with
Mhm.
everything that you've been around to say that, and you're educated, you work in corporate America, you're an artist, you're a recognized artist. Like she just started putting all of these things in one box, and when I got to look at that box, I was like, it made me so self-aware in a way that I never had been before, where I look at the collective birth to now. And it's like, dude, like that's something to be celebrated. You know what I mean? That's
Absolutely.
something to be celebrated.
Absolutely.
So I started my music even changed from there. Like I started talking you know what I mean? like because I just started to realize that like, and that's what therapy did for me, bro. It just changed the conversation that I have with myself in my
Yes,
head. You know what I
absolutely.
mean?
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that so much because, when you hear about therapy and if you've never experienced it before, you just have these assumptions about what you're going to experience. And
Hmm.
you took that leap, which I think for anybody, you have to be an advocate for yourself. You have to want to change. You have
Yeah.
to want to get over the feelings that you're feeling on a day-to-day basis. And it's
Mhm.
like, I need something. And there are resources out here. Let me go see if I can tap into one of
Yeah.
these. And I think in the same breath, like I think both of us may come across to the world as very, confident and very I don't know, self-loving, but a lot of my trauma and a lot of the things that I realized about myself was that low self-esteem and
Mhm.
low negative image and all of
Mhm.
these things, which I overcompensated with by doing stuff and trying to get accomplishments and trying to,
Mm.
pad the resume and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. And so I would have never come to that realization if it wasn't for therapy.
Mm.
And I think like it's I we gotta sit down a little bit longer because like the same timing of things is like 2019. I tell people now I'm not the same person that I was prior to like after 2019. That
Mhm.
year was the
Mhm.
year that a lot of big things happened in my life. And I feel that if you knew me before that, you
Mhm.
got to re-meet me, and you got
Uh-huh.
to meet me who I am today,
Yeah.
because I am a totally different person with a different mindset, with different values, because of the trauma that I experienced during that time
Mhm.
and how it impacted me. Like you
Mm.
said, like experiencing trauma at a young age, and having that happen, you learn to grow through it and you learn
Mhm.
to get through it. But for whatever reason, the stuff that was happening in that year really changed me,
Mhm.
and I couldn't think the same. I couldn't get up and
Mhm.
have the same motivation. It was just like, who am I?
Yeah.
And that was one of my reasons for going to therapy, because like you mentioned, I was on the floor bawling and crying, and I was speaking incoherently.
Mm.
And and that was after not slept. I hadn't slept for a month. And that was the end of that not sleeping, because that night I finally got some sleep.
Mm.
And it was just like, I need to do something different. And
Mhm.
so it was like, let me dive into therapy. So I appreciate you for sharing that. Hopefully somebody goes and does something different. if
I
if
hope
if they've
so.
never done therapy before, maybe that inspired them too.
I hope so.
But from hearing your story, and again, we could talk for days and hours, we could talk forever
And I got
on
time, so however long you want to go, like we can, you know,
definitely,
you know us, man.
definitely.
We'll sit and talk for 4 hours,
We
5 hours, be look up, and be like, dang, that felt like
Yes,
30 minutes. You know what I'm
time
saying?
will just fly.
Yeah.
But and so hearing your story and knowing that, one thing that we haven't mentioned is when you first came out, you were Nashville's what is it, hottest or hot
Yeah.
top hip hop
Uh,
artist, new
hot new hip best hip hop newcomer of 2020.
best hip hop newcomer of 2020,
Mhm.
off your first off your first project,
Yeah.
Nine. And you have grown so much musically, you've grown so much personally from
Mhm.
that. Where is the music now? Where is the music now? Where is it going? What you got for us to listen to?
Man, I think, that first year was overwhelming because that was just a peek into what I had already worked on. Like those 6 songs were what I saw a silver lining or a lining in between that kind of spoke to the same ideal that I was trying to get across in that. So that was just 6 songs out of I had been recording myself for probably a year before I dropped that project. So I had music already, but I wasn't prepared for what came from that project, the attention, and I really kind of shut myself down a little bit after that. Well, actually, let me say this: I started working more. I'm like, all right, I got to show up for this. Let's get these videos done. And the financial part, it took me probably a year to fully roll that project out. When I talk about the project, the videos, just me getting the idea of what that project meant across to people, so that they actually understood what I was, they were picking up what I was putting down in that project. And the imposter syndrome set in, and me
Mm,
feeling like uh, I've known people who've been doing music for 10 years, and I've touched stages that they haven't in my first year.
right.
You know what I mean? And am I worthy of that? You know what I'm saying? Am I supposed to be in this position? Was that a fluke? You know what I mean? So you know what they say, that sophomore slump. You know what I mean? So I was preparing an album for that following year, 2021, and I lost my job. And that kind
Mm-hmm.
of just, like I said, and the loss of the job came. It was a company issue, but it was also in me not, like I said, I went from being here to there. So I was a low man on the totem pole in so many ways. And that really put a halt to like all of my plans that I'd had, for my first. Like I was ready to follow up, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I was ready to hit a home run.
Right.
And once that happened, I went to being a full-time entrepreneur in music, something that I'm still so unsure of. Now I have to figure out how to go make money from it, and I ended up putting out In the Rough, which came because I went to therapy. It was a project where it's like from beginning to end, it's such a vulnerable project. It's one that I still listen to and like I fight back tears today. You know
Mm.
what I mean? And I think that album was on time. It's an EP, but I say album because there were so many people going through what I was going through. Like we would meet at the store and it would be us and maybe 4 or 5 other people, and we would just sit there and talk. And I'm like, everybody's
Yep.
going through in the rough. Everybody is going through something rough.
Yep.
So I put that project out, and man, even from that, like I felt embarrassed from some of the things that I was saying in there. Like in one of the songs, I lead off with saying, "Got laid off of my job today," and I literally wrote that song the day I got
Yeah.
laid off, and it was liberating, but it was so scary. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It was I was so full of fear, and I had to work through that. At the same time, I'm learning what it means to be an artist up here and right here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a um it's a circumstance. There's just so much evolution, so much self internalizing so many things about
Absolutely.
yourself. So I over the last year, even from dropping that project, it's been that was 2021, so this is over a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. I said, all right, I really don't want to drop any more music until I feel like I'm able to stand in front of what this next body of work is saying, you
Okay.
know. And so I didn't want to be the same version when this next project is talking about transformation. Let me go through the transformation, still find a way to show up for being an artist, to let people know I'm still an artist. So I got more engaged in content.
Mm-hmm.
I hit the ground and I really was doing shows. I've done shows in backyards. I've done shows in the Dive Motel,
Yeah.
um, the African American Music Museum downtown, the Frisk Museum, and
Huge.
all of these things at parks. Like I'm literally wherever I can, and I'm touching the people. So I really started putting the groundwork in to make myself recognizable, so that when this next body of work comes out, because I know it's one of them. Like this next project, I've sat with it since I was going to drop it in 2021. So just think about
Yeah.
I've set, and I've built on it ever since then. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And this project needed that evolution. It wasn't ready in 2021, and I wasn't ready to sit in front of it and have the conversation that this project is going to create.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow. I love
So,
that.
man, so I went through just really the evolution of Quez. You know what I'm saying? And assuring myself, and I still like I just wrote something on IG yesterday about just the struggle between doubt and confidence, and like if I'm doing the right thing, if I'm really investing my time and resources into the right thing by doing music, by being an artist, by pouring into it, because it's not it's not something that pays you back in so
Right.
many ways. So I took that and I just started selling the merch. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Different things that I started doing where it's like, okay, I'm evolving. I'm not just an artist, I'm a businessman. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And um Quez is the artist, but Marquez is the owner. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And how does one and it's wearing multiple hats. I put on the Quez hat and I go into my mode and you know what I mean? And then I put on the Marquez hat and I got to do the business. I got to do the paperwork. I got to make sure, because the way that I feel about this project is like, I feel like more than what it can do for me, I know what it can do for people. There's so much
Wow.
transformation. There's so many transformative ideas, so many things about identity and just assurance and being sure about what you're doing, especially like by telling my story, and,
Yes.
and I hope that people, when they hear it, I hope that they hear that, and I hope that's what they receive. But it's also really good music. You know what
Yes.
I mean? It's
I
really
love
good
it.
music. So
I
it's like
love it.
I'm just ready, man. So like this month, I don't know when we're premiering this, but um July 27th, I'm dropping the first single. It's called Talking My Shit.
Yes.
And it's really, like I said, just over the time of going through confidence and doubt, and like, man, and understanding who I've been this whole time, and finally that light bulb going off, like, this is only a song that I could write.
Yes.
It's only a song that I could write, and it's only a song that I can stand in front of, and like I said, tomorrow I may go get the nerves and be like, man, I don't know if I'm ready to talk this type of way in front of people.
Call me, because I'm gonna say
Yeah.
nope. Keep
You know
going.
what I'm saying? But like, man, I'm telling you, cause and then the two, I got two more singles after that, and one of them, both of them, I feel like are going to be pretty big and going to like
Wow.
this is a project full. It's not songs, it's statements. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Like I'm
Ooh.
making a statement in every song, and I'm making a statement about myself, and I hope people hear it and internalize that personally for themselves and say, man, yeah, I need to talk my shit too. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like I
Yes.
need to be comfortable in who I am, what I've achieved, and feel and be okay verbalizing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And not feel like I'm being arrogant or I'm being a narcissist. Or, no, this is the truth.
No,
You
no,
know what I
you're right.
mean?
You're right. And it's you just got me inspired, because that's embracing vulnerability right now, telling my story, helping other people tell their story so that
Hmm.
we can build. You talked about connection. You talked about how it's helped you find you. Like, it's so much of that. And you got me inspired, because like this podcast, doing this,
Hmm.
I've been terrified to start this,
Yeah,
but it's finally getting over that. And so, like, allowing me to share this platform, share my story on this platform and share other people's story on it. So I'm feeling the energy. I
yeah,
feel the level of energy that when you just started talking about it, it just kept rising.
yeah,
And I cannot wait for the world to hear it, because I've heard snippets, I've heard a little bit, and I'm just like, oh, it's gonna be fire.
yeah.
It's about to be fire.
I think when you actually sit, because you heard it in the studio, you know what I'm saying? You got to hear it in the studio, and you probably don't even necessarily remember what you heard. You just remember it was like it was fire. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I think the way that you even like you're a music person, you know what I mean? You take it and it becomes a part of you and you live with it. You know what I mean? So I feel like even when you hear it again in its entirety and you see the rollout that we got planned for it, like that, like the growth from
Yeah.
Nine and In the Rough to this next one, and even, man, it just, I'm
I
excited because
cannot
I'm
wait.
like,
Are
and
you dropping a name for it?
you want to drop it right here?
That's up to you. You don't have to.
Yeah, so
You don't
I'll go
have
ahead and
to.
drop it. No, I got you. So like, it's a great place, and whoever checks it out, they gonna get their first look. So it's called Nine, but it's spelled out, and it's an acronym: N.I.N.E. New is never easy. New is never
Ooh.
easy. You
New
know
is
what I
never
mean?
easy. That's
Yeah,
powerful. Oh, that's
yeah.
powerful. That's so much in that name.
And
That's
man, and the
Phew.
the the name came before the name came from along with Petty, just sitting talking to him. He said, "Man, you should drop nine like as like the word." And I was like, I sat with that for about a week. I said, "Man, I'm gonna make it an acronym." And then we sat down, and he came back. He said, "New is never easy." And I was like, dang, that's crazy. That's crazy. And then once I listened to the project along with the name, I'm like, I'm literally saying that throughout the project. Like I'm literally the songs are saying that. Like it's like I said, it's about transformation and
Yes.
and becoming like not necessarily a different version of myself, but a more authentic version of myself. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And being comfortable, being whole, whatever that looks like. If it's crying in front of the crowd, if it's smiling with the biggest bright, because when you grieving, like I see DC Young Fly going through it right now. People like,
Hmm.
man, he seemed like he not. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah,
You
man.
never know.
You don't know how far in between those smiles come from when you're. And then when I'm at home, you'll never know. So you can see me with the brightest smile, biggest smile,
Right.
and then I go home and I'm just not that. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so now I'm feeling like I'm internally back connected with my smile, bro. Like I'm smiling all the time. I still have those days where it gets dark,
Yes.
you know what I mean? But I'm able to like practice the like true gratitude, because the smile comes from like making it through what I've been through. You know what I'm
Definitely.
saying? And feeling like, oh man, I woke up this morning. That's the victory. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's the win. And that's something to smile about, regardless of what I encounter, today. So new is never easy, dropping 2023. You know what I mean?
Let's
we got
go.
three crazy singles dropping for y'all over the next 3 months.
Let's
You know what I'm saying? And the
go.
first one is Talking My Shit,
I
featuring
love it.
They Need Weez.
Ooh wee! I cannot wait for
Whew.
that. I cannot wait. You got you got goosebumps popping out. All right.
Yeah,
I got a couple questions for you. Rapid
for sure.
response. First thing to come to mind, just drop it, whatever it is.
Hmm.
All right. What comes to mind when you hear the word vulnerability?
Honesty.
Honestly, I love that. If you could have a conversation with anybody, living or dead, who would it be?
My dad, my pops for sure.
Wow.
Hmm.
What is one of your favorite childhood memories?
Being at the Music City Miracle and not seeing it.
I'm gonna have to get you on with Kevin Dyson, and y'all gotta talk about that.
Man, hey, it's a crazy, and it's my dad and my brother. The two were like, I'm telling you, bro, my story is so crazy. But yeah,
Oh
being at the Music
man.
City Miracle and not seeing it.
Oh man. Okay.
Hmm.
What is a book or movie that everyone should read or watch?
PTSD, persevering through severe dysfunction,
Yes,
by
sir.
Reggie D. Ford. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
sir. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Uh, what is one thing you do to relax when you're feeling stressed?
Walk.
Walk. I love that. And then lastly, what is the number one podcast you've ever experienced?
Embracing vulnerability. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? With Reggie D. Ford. I'm telling you, man. I'm so happy to be here with you, because I don't know if you can tell by this smile, but I'm happy to be here. Embracing vulnerability.
Man, I am happy that you are here. It's so many gems, so much vulnerability that you express, and I really do appreciate you sharing as deeply as you did, because I think it's really going to help. Like every time I sit there and I listen to you talk, and I gain so much insight and so much healing just from hearing your story. So I
Mm,
appreciate that, and I hope that the audience gets that same feeling as well.
yes, sir.
Where can they find you?
Um, Man, quezcan.com, www.quezcan.com. That has links to everything, all my socials. But if you want to find me on Instagram, which is where I'm most active at, it's Motivated Quez, MOE_TIVATED Quez, QUEZ. And so if you need that again,
Yeah.
MOE_TIVATED Quez, QUEZ.
I'm gonna put that in the show notes so that they can just click on it, because that's a
Yeah.
lot.
And
But yo,
yeah.
we got it. We got Motivated Quez, quezcan.com. Follow me at Reggie D Ford on all platforms. And then Embracing Vulnerability, Quez, with all the things that you could be doing and all the places that you can be. I appreciate you for being here with me, Embracing Vulnerability.
Thank you,
Appreciate
my
it.
brother. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another powerful episode of Vulnerability Muscle. I hope you found inspiration and valuable insights that resonate with you. If you're enjoying this journey of self discovery and empowerment, there are a few ways you can support the podcast. First, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. If you've been moved by our conversations and the mission of redefining vulnerability, please consider leaving a review. Your feedback not only motivates us, but also helps others discover the podcast. Share your thoughts on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. And don't forget to spread the word. Follow us on Instagram at Vulnerability Muscle for updates, and you can connect with me personally at Reggie D. Ford on all platforms. Visit vulnerabilitymuscle.com for additional resources and upcoming episodes. And remember, embracing vulnerability is strength. Thanks for being a part of the journey. Until next time, stay empowered, stay vulnerable, and keep flexing that vulnerability muscle.